Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the 10th Anniversary Symposium of Mekong Republic of Korea Cooperation as part of the Global Korea Convention 2021. I am La Yong-nan and your MC for today's event. It's a great pleasure to meet you all. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Today's symposium is taking place in order to commemorate the 10th anniversary of Mekong Republic of Korea Cooperation. We have here today experts in the area of international cooperation and water resources to understand the current status of water resources in the Mekong region and look into international cooperation in the domain. I truly hope that today's opportunity serves as a venue to share wisdom as well as insights, and it's a great honor to be a part of this event. Let me now introduce you to the VIPs of today's symposium. And as I name each and every one of them, please welcome them with a big round of applause. First, we have Jung Kyung-yoon, CEO of Korea-Mekong Water Resource Management Collaborative Research Center and Vice President of K-Water. A big round of applause, please. Thank you very much, CEO Jung Kyung-yoon. Next, we have Kim Hae-yong, Secretary General of ASEAN Korea Center. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence and welcome. Thank you. We have Deputy Director General Kim Dong-bae of the ASEAN and Southeast Asian Affairs Bureau of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Welcome. And we also have the directors of KMCRC joining us. We have from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Chung Kyung-hwa, Director of Southeast Asia Division 2 of ASEAN and Southeast Asian Affairs Bureau. A big round of applause, please. Thank you very much for coming. And we have from KOICA, Vice President for Asia and Europe, Im Jung-hee. Thank you very much for coming. And we have the Chairman of Korean National Committee for IHP, Chung Kwan-soo. A big welcome, please. Thank you very much for joining us. Moving on, we have Professor Chun Kyung-soo of Sungkyunkwan University. Thank you very much. And we have from K-Water, Mr. Lee Jong-jin, Head of Global Business Division. Thank you very much. And we have Director Park No-hyuk of K-Water Institute. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you for the warm welcome. And thank you for your participation. Thank you very much for coming despite your busy schedules. We would like to name each and every one of you, but in lieu of time, we cannot do that, and I do ask for your understanding. In order to open up the symposium, we would like to show you a video on KMCRC, which will depict the background as well as the current status of water resource cooperation. Please join us in watching the screen.
The Mekong River region is in a very important point, lifeline connecting 5 countries. It's a physical flow and has remarkable natural resources as well as growth potential. However, because of dam constructions, there are disputes over water and also water-related disasters related to climate change, including floods and droughts. The government of Korea has joined forces with the Mekong region and held the first Korea-Mekong Summit meeting in Busan in 2019. A variety of different ways for cooperation was presented. I propose establishing the Korea-Mekong Collaborative Research Center that will play a very important role in the utilization of water in the Mekong River. This was the Korea-Mekong River Declaration adopted at the summit. KMCRC was founded within K-Water And KMCRC seeks for sustainable water resources management in the Mekong region. It is committed to establishing a cooperative system with the Mekong region countries through several joint projects for resolving water problems in the river basin. KMCRC is a collaborative platform dedicated to addressing various issues related to water and also provides support for the government policies. KMCRC will support future projects and also contribute to solving issues around the Mekong River Basin and also contribute to the relationship between Korea and Mekong. Water is a precious resource. It is not just for drinking, but much more. To promote cooperation, the KMCRC will continue to play a very important role.
네, 감사드립니다. 보신 것처럼
Thank you very much. As you just saw, it is one of the successful outcomes of the new Southern policy, and
물 분야 전문 센터인
it is the first expert center that was established for the water resource management of the Mekong region.
심포지엄을 시작하기에 앞서
Before we start the main part of the symposium, I'd like to ask
모셔서
the Director Board, Chung Kyung-hwa of KMCRC, to deliver his remark. He's also the Executive Vice President of K-Water and served as the head of the Environmental Agency in Daegu.
안녕하십니까? 한메콩 물관리 공동연구센터 이사.
I am Chung Kyung-yoon, CEO of KMCRC.
I'd first like to thank Kim Hye-yong, the Secretary General of Korea ASEAN Center, Kim Dong-bae, the Deputy Director General of the ASEAN Bureau in the MOFA, and also Anfichi Hada, the head of the Mekong River Committee, Suryan Pichirek-khan, Director of the Mekong Research Institute, and the many distinguished speakers and discussants. As a result of climate change, flood and drought and other hydro disasters are taking place frequently. The Mekong region undergoes many challenges, including droughts and flooding and the deterioration of water quality. The water experts throughout the world have been focusing very much in this region to improve the situation. Many countries need to cooperate closely to address such issues. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Korean-Mekong Cooperative Framework. Korea and Mekong countries all are very fortunate for this framework, and it is a very important year. In 2011, the Korea-Mekong Foreign Ministers meeting took place. The Korean-Mekong cooperation started with this meeting. And this government elected a new Southern policy as its policy priority and also upgraded it to a Korea-Mekong Summit meeting. Therefore, it is at the center of the new Southern policy. Korea has been developing its economy at an unprecedented pace, and its economic status is also elevated. It has become an exemplary case in the international community. Along with its development, Korea has accumulated know-how in water resource management. The KMCRC is the first center that focuses on water resources of the Mekong region. It hopes to contribute to the solution on the Mekong region water issues. In this symposium, we will be sharing the current situation and issues regarding the water resources of the Mekong region and try to find ways to further consolidate the Korea-Mekong cooperative relationship. We hope that it is a fruitful opportunity for all who are here. Thank you very much, the KMCRC staff members and everyone for participating at this symposium. I wish you the very best. Thank you very much.
여러분 이사장님께
Thank you very much. Once again, a big round of applause for the CEO of KMCRC, CEO Chung Kyung-yoon. Thank you very much. And as mentioned, it will be important to maintain our mutually beneficial partnership between Korea and Mekong, and we need to look into ways to sustain this collaboration, which is the key theme of today's symposium. Thank you very much. Moving on, I would like to now invite Secretary General Kim Hae-yong of ASEAN Korea Center. Secretary General Kim Hae-yong served as the ambassador to Myanmar as well as to New Zealand. A big round of applause, please.
안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. CEO Jung Kyung-yoon of KMCRC, Mr. An Peach Hata, CEO of Mekong River Commission, Mr. Suryan Wichilkam, Executive Director of Mekong Institute, and Deputy Director General Kim Dong-bae of the ASEAN and Southeast Asian Affairs Bureau of MOFA. It's a great pleasure to meet you all, and also congratulations on the opening of the 10th Anniversary Symposium of Mekong-ROK Cooperation despite the very difficult situation. Korea and Mekong is now joining and enjoying a strategic partnership, and there were many limitations due to COVID-19. And considering all of the challenging circumstances, I think that today's symposium carries on significant meaning. And the climate crisis and sustainable development is very valid when it comes to water resource management, especially under this COVID situation. And it's a great pleasure to deal with this topic. I would like to extend my gratitude to KMCRC for inviting me to this symposium and also providing me with the opportunity to provide the remarks. The Mekong River Basin is the mother of many, of more than 70 million people in the Southeast Asian region. And the 5 countries of the Mekong region has a size of 1.94 million square kilometers. And 240 million people live in this region. So it's a very active and dynamic region, which is 8 times greater than Korea. The Mekong countries have been focused on integration of the Southeast Asian region, and there are some difficulties in integrating due to the underdevelopments of the region. However, sustainable development and growth will be possible once the Mekong region makes that next leap forward, so it's full of potential. Experts believe that it's important to continue on with sustainable and strategic development with Southeast Asian countries, and in that aspect, Mekong is of utmost importance. Ever since 1999, 7% annual growth was staged by the region. Due to COVID-19, it's true that we were at a stalemate. However, according to ADB's economic report in September, in 2022, the Mekong River Basin will be achieving a 5% economic growth and will be going down the path of recovery. But of course, there are still many challenges. Above all, for rapid recovery, we need an access to vaccination. And ever since February, the situation in Myanmar and the competition between the U.S. and China is leading to some geopolitical challenges as well as tension. For the past 10 years, Korea and Mekong countries have been focused on inclusive development and strategic growth. So we've been focused on such partnership, and in such COVID situations, we've been engaged in health partnership to strengthen our cooperation. In 2011 and onwards, Korea and the 5 countries of Mekong has increased trade by 2.5 times and visits increased by 3-fold. And last year, even amid the COVID situation, 83 billion in trade volume was achieved, showing that the strength of the partnership between the two. Once COVID is behind us and with world's economic recovery, trade and collaboration between Korea and Mekong will be expanded further. And particularly, the cooperation between Korea and ASEAN will also be determined by Mekong, and it will be providing us with a future vision to do that better. The topic of the symposium is water resource management, and it's about a human-faced community and a human-based approach, and it's of top priority, especially for the region. Floods and droughts and other climate crises have a direct relationship to the livelihood and the survival of the residents of the Mekong region. Korea and the Mekong countries for sustainable development of the two regions have continued on with water resource management. And ever since the summit in 2019, we've also put together the KMCRC to engage in further collaboration. The ASEAN Korea Center is also focused on sustainable and future-oriented partnership with ASEAN. We want to reduce the gap in the region and enhance interconnectivity of the countries. And we do understand and focus on the importance of the Mekong region. And with regard to that, I know that there are many experts here today that will share their insights, and I hope that we can continue on with our collaboration with all of the participants. Above all, this symposium is critical in terms of understanding the importance of sustainable development. And it's also about identifying the future ways for water resource management, and I hope that it serves faithful to its theme. Once again, congratulations on the 10th Anniversary Symposium of Mekong-ROK Cooperation. I wish you the best and great success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General Kim Hae-yong. For sustainable and future-oriented Korean-ASEAN partnership, water resource management, as well as inclusive green recovery, is important for the recovery and co-prosperity in the Mekong River region. Thank you very much. Now, we'll listen to the congratulatory message of An Pit Hada, the CEO of Mekong River Commission. He served as the Deputy Secretary General at the Cambodian
Distinguished
Secretariat.
delegates, colleagues, and friends, it gives me great pleasure to address today's meeting on behalf of the Mekong River Commission. I'm very delighted to be here with friends and colleagues of the Mekong and Korea. And it is my honor to be part of this event celebrating 10 years of cooperation between the Mekong and Republic of Korea. If I had to go back in time, in 2019, the leaders of 5 Mekong countries, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, and Korea met in Busan for Mekong Republic of Korea Summit. At the summit, they issued the Mekong-Han River Declaration for establishing partnership for people, prosperity, and peace. Since then, this has given us a window to cooperate on various water resources sectors that are important to our mutual benefits. I was also there in Korea in 2019 to witness the inauguration of the Mekong Republic of Korea Water Resources Joint Research Centers to promote and improve the Mekong Republic of Korea cooperation on sustainable and integrated water resources management. Cooperation and partnership between the Mekong and the Republic of Korea in the environment and water sectors has been a top priority in the declaration. It was a topic priority because the sustainability of the Mekong River Basin, its development and common challenges need to be ensured and addressed. As part of the Mekong Republic Korea Partnership Initiative, the MRC and our Korean partners, namely Korean Development Institute or KDI and Korea Water Resources Corporation or K-Water, established the collaboration through MOUs. The MRC Secretariat, where I has had a pleasure working with KDI through knowledge sharing programs, which create an avenue for the two organizations to collaborate on sharing knowledge and experience in various fields of water-related resources. The first knowledge sharing program on water security and hydropower development was completed in 2018. The second and the current program for 2021 focuses on flood and drought management and forecasting using AI and big data. It is also commendable to note that the cooperation between the MRC and K-Water has been progressing well after signing the MOU in 2019. Both organizations have begun conducting the planned capacity building program on water data utilization. Through the program, K-Water, in collaboration with the US, Army Corps of Engineers, and NASA, provide a series of training sessions to the MRC member country and conducts a pilot study on specific area of the Mekong. So far, our cooperation with Korea has proven successful and gone beyond material symbolism, but one that has brought tangible benefits to the Mekong region and country. As a river basin organization, and like all the river basin organizations around the world, the MRC's work has been challenged by a host of factors. But this is becoming more intensive today. We believe in an era where the Mekong River is confronting with increasing risks from climate change, extreme floods, and droughts, and development activity. These problems are complex and need urgent actions. Distinguished delegates, as President Moon Jae-in once said, and I quote him here, Korea has become a special friend of the Mekong. I would like to thank the Korean government as well as our special friends, Korean partners, and experts for your continued support and partnership during this critical time. As the CEO and on behalf of the MRC member country, we highly value this cooperation and partnership. I have a high hope that our partnership will lead us far and beyond what we do today. I hope we can continue our special bond and commitments and work more closely over the coming years to ensure the best possible scientific expertise and knowledge from Korea are well transferred to the Mekong. As we strive for strengthened institutional capacity and make the Mekong River Basin a more resilient path to climate risk and environment threat. I believe today's special session will give us the opportunity to discuss and understand current water issues in the Mekong region and how Korea-Mekong Cooperation can play a role and support the water resources management in the Mekong Basin. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for your kind attention. I wish the meeting a fruitful discussion and success. I look forward to witnessing the fruit of our cooperation.
네, 감사드립니다. 여러분, 의미
Thank you very much for the meaningful words. Once again, thank you very much, CEO An-Pik Tata of MRC, for your remarks.
말씀 진심을 담아서 전해주신
I was able to sense the sincerity in his words and also the interest and affection he has for the symposium. As mentioned, Korea and Mekong has a special friendship. And in solving the climate crisis and the pending issue of water management, I hope that we can engage in further partnership. Thank you very much for your words. Let us now listen to the next video message by Mr. Suriyan Vichulekam, Executive Director of Mekong Institute. Mr. Vichulekan was also the Partnership Officer at FAO and was the manager at the Greater Mekong Sub-Region Agriculture Secretariat at ADB. Let us all watch the video.
Mr. Dong Bae Kim, Deputy Director General, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Korea. Mr. Kyung Yoon Jung, Chief Executive Officer, Korea-Mekong Water Resource Management Collaborative Research Center, Mr. Hae Yong Kim, Secretary General ASEAN Korea Center, Dr. Anpich Hadda, Chief Executive Officer, Mekong River Commission. Distinguished speakers, panelists, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasant greetings to all of you. At the outset, please allow me to extend my heartfelt thanks to the host of the event, the Korea-Mekong Water Resource Management Collaborative Research Center, for your kind invitation. Mekong Institute, or MI, is an intergovernmental organization established by the 6 Greater Mekong Sub-region countries, namely Cambodia, PR China, Laos PDR, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. MI is mandated to promote capacity development for regional cooperation and integration. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in addition to our core work program, MI is also privileged to contribute to Mekong Republic of Korea Partnership, which has become an important cooperation platform in the region. Following the launch of the Mekong Republic of Korea Partnership in 2011, the Mekong Republic of Korea Cooperation Fund, or MKCF, was established in 2013. This is to encourage and support cooperation outlined in the Han River Declaration 2011. It was agreed among the Mekong countries and Republic of Korea that MKCF would be financed through an annual contribution from the Republic of Korea to MI and managed by MI in accordance with the terms of reference adopted at the 3rd Mekong Republic of Korea Foreign Minister meeting in July 2013 in Bandar Seri, Bengawan. So far, MKCF has 5 calls for proposal. There are altogether 33 projects approved for implementation. At present, MKCF projects are categorized in 7 priority areas, namely 1. Culture and tourism, 2. Human resources development, 3. Agriculture and rural development, 4. Infrastructure, 5. Information and communication technology, 6. Environment, and 7. Non-traditional security challenges. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, among various priority areas, it is undeniable to accept the fact that water and water management has been an important topic. Mekong Institute recognizes the need for strengthening water management cooperation through data and information exchange, as well as for integrating efficient use of water into economic sector policy and strategies. Along this line, Mekong Institute wishes to congratulate all partners involved in the development cooperation and partnership. In particular, I wish to congratulate Korea-Mekong Water Resource Management Collaborative Research Center as a key MKCF project implementing agency for the successful project and future possible endeavors in the years to come. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, lastly, I wish to take this opportunity to inform you that Mekong Institute is honored and privileged to be selected as the recipient of ASEAN Prize 2021. This is for the first time that such award is given to an organization or individual that are based in the Mekong countries of ASEAN. Mekong Institute sees this as recognition on the collective efforts and commitments among Mekong countries and development partners such as Republic of Korea in building a Mekong sub-regional community of people-centered prosperity and peace. Mekong Institute hopes to contribute greater to partnership and synergies among the Mekong countries, Republic of Korea, and development partners in the coming years. Thank you for your kind attention.
여러분 지금까지 수리안 비출한 MI 메콩
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Suryan Vichakan, the Executive Director of MI. MI has been working very hard as a key platform to enable and support the Korean-Mekong cooperation.
이렇게 해서 한국과 메콩 국가 간의 협력
So we have heard about the Korea-Mekong cooperation and the many efforts taking place in resource management, water resource management.
그럼
Next
정책 및
remark will be given by
기조 연설을 함께
Mr. Kim Dong-bae, who is the Deputy Director General at the ASEAN Bureau in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He served as the Counselor Minister at the Korean Embassy in Vietnam and also served as the Vice Consul General in Sydney.
정경윤 한메콩 물관리 공동연구.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kim Hae-yong, Secretary General of Han-ASEAN Center, Mr. Jung Kyung-woon of the KMCRC, Dr. An-Pich Hada, and Executive Director Suryan Vijkan, many experts and distinguished guests. My name is Kim Dong-bae. I am the DDG at the ASEAN Bureau at MOFA. I'm sorry that I'm unable to show you my very handsome face due to the requirement to wear facial masks. I hope to have another opportunity to do so in the future. Well, thank you very much for attending today's symposium. I just returned home on November 1st after serving abroad for 6 years. So this is the first official event that I'm attending, and it is very meaningful for me. I'd like to thank the KMCRC officials for organizing this symposium and inviting me. ASEAN, I believe, is a very special partner for Korea in terms of trade, investment, ODA, and exchange of human resources. Also, in terms of emotional commonalities, Korea and ASEAN are very, very close. And it's no wonder that BTS is the most popular group in ASEAN. Right before I returned to Korea, I served in Vietnam. In 2018 June, Korea was finishing up the framework for the Korea's new Southern policy. I was working as the head of the team at that time. For the past 30 years, Korea and ASEAN has been developing and promoting its close and comprehensive relationship. The new Southern policy, announced in 2017, was the community of peace and prosperity with people at the center. It coincides with the spirit of ASEAN. In 2017, there was the commemorative Korean-ASEAN Summit meeting, and in 2020, the new Southern Policy Plus is about accelerating the implementation of the new Southern Policy. Due to the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, many things have been put on hold. However, it was not the case for exchange between Korea and ASEAN. After the launch, the relationship has expanded and developed. Policy, security, and social aspects were all included in the ASEAN framework, and the ASEAN countries were brought closer together. The ASEAN community was launched in 2017. However, the 4 Mekong countries, who were the latecomers, still suffer from a large gap, and it is still a very big challenge for the region. ASEAN wants to overcome this challenge, and they announced the MPEG 2050. They also announced the AIA, which is about reinforcing cooperation within the region. Due to the 4th industrial revolution and the COVID-19 pandemic, the circumstances are rapidly changing, and this could lead to a wider gap between the countries of the region. As you heard in the congratulatory remark, Korea and other partner countries need to continue to provide support and assistance. Korea supports the integration of ASEAN and wants to contribute to reducing the interregional gap through the cooperative program. Korea ODA, 17% of Korea ODAs go to the Mekong countries, so it has become key ODA partners of Korea. 2017 was the year when the first Korea-Mekong Summit meeting was held and a declaration was adopted at the time. 7 prior projects were identified at that time that included rural development, infrastructure, IT, and many other areas. Furthermore, a tailored fund was launched. The Korean Mekong Cooperative Fund was launched from 2013 until now. More than $14 million was collected as part of this fund. And until last year, every year, the fund size was $3 million, but it has been increased to $4 million this year, and next year it will be increased further. The 5 Mekong countries have diplomatic relations with both South and North Korea. So it is a very important partner for establishing peace on the Korean Peninsula. The first DPRK-US summit meeting was held in Singapore in 2019. And I believe that they play a very important part in the peace process. As you can see, the Mekong countries have the asset to contribute to peace and prosperity in Northeast Asia as well as the Korean Peninsula. They are an essential partner of us. This is the 10th year that we have launched the Mekong-ROK cooperation. In the first Mekong Korea summit meeting, the cooperation itself was elevated to the summit level. And later it was upgraded to strategic partner relationship. As a result, the bilateral trade between the Mekong countries and Korea, as well as investment, expanded exponentially. And so did human exchange. Korea actively participated in railroads and other infrastructure projects in the Mekong region and contributed to reduce the gap. Water resource management and forestry management were also areas where we conducted cooperative projects. To enhance the quality of Korea-Mekong cooperation, we have been holding the Korea-Mekong Business Forum every year since 2014. So cooperation in the private sector is also being strengthened. Furthermore, one-on-one investment consultations are held to promote the cooperative relationship. We believe that the Mekong-Korea relationship can take a more sustainable route, and we will continue to support the relationship in that direction. The biggest issue in the Mekong River Basin is water resource management, because more than 200 million people depend on the river for their livelihood. The water resource management in the Mekong River Basin is essential for sustainability in the Mekong River region. We are engaged in the capacity building project in Laos, as well as enhancing and elevating the disaster response capabilities in these countries. The water data capacity project is one of the most important projects taking place. This project is being conducted by the KMCRC in conjunction with the US's NASA. Mekong connects China and India. It also has a fastly growing regional market and financial market. The population is also very young, so there is great growth potential. Recently, US, Japan, France, and Australia have announced their Indo-Pacific strategy, and Mekong region has become a very important part of this strategy. At the May Korea-US Summit meeting, the US said that it would cooperate and support Korea's New Southern Policy. Cooperation in many areas were sought, including the health sector. The KMCRC is engaged in the project of utilizing the Mekong River water data. This is one of the prime examples of linked cooperation in the Mekong River. As we commemorate the 10th anniversary, Korea and Mekong has designated 2021 and 2020 as the year of Korea-Mekong cooperation. Many events are taking place under this slogan. Lee Kwang-soo was also appointed as the ambassador for Korea-Mekong cooperation last year. Korea will continue to meet many expectations regarding its cooperation with the Mekong countries. I hope the symposium will be able to provide us with many creative ideas. The recommendations or proposals that you make at the symposium will be well utilized as we further our cooperation with Mekong. Thank you very much.
실무가님 정말 소중한 말씀 감사합니다.
Once again, a big round of applause for Deputy Director General Kim.
공식
You've
일정
mentioned that this is your first official conference ever since you came back to Korea. I can see that Korea-ASEAN partnership is a key agenda, especially when it comes to our partnership with the Mekong River Basin. Thank you very much for your insights.
오늘 이 시간 심포지엄에 참석해 주신
I would now like to move on to a commemorative photo op with the next agenda item of the day.
전문가들 모시고
We will invite experts to talk about the cooperation between Korea and Mekong in water resource management.
주제로
Under the title Operation and Roles of Korea-Mekong Water Resources Management Collaborative Research Center, let me now invite Director Park Jin-young of KMCRC for his presentation. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
센터 입장에서
As the host of today's symposium, I would like to extend my gratitude to our distinguished guests, including Secretary General Kim Hae-yong of ASEAN Korea Center and Deputy Director General Kim Dong-bae of MOFA, and speakers, panelists. Thank you very much.
특별히 참석해
And particularly, we have our members of the board of KMCRC here today.
분들께 진심으로
I
감사합니다.
would like to extend my sincere thanks to you all for your participation. KMCRC is the only and the global leading organization that engages in R&D with regard to Mekong water resource management, and I would like to talk about what kind of roles we play.
추진 계획에 대해서는
First, on the background of KMCRC, well, in lieu of time, I will not go into detail. As was already mentioned by our distinguished guests,
핵심 외교 정책의 하나인
the current administration is focusing on the New Southern Policy, and this program is a part of this strategy. The Mekong region has many water-related issues, including water disasters and floods and disputes. And due to the dam construction disputes between the upper and lower regions, we do understand that there are many challenges. And it is also critical because it connects the Indian and the Pacific Ocean. In other words, it has a geopolitical importance, and that is why China and the U.S. is vying to gain prominence. The new Southern policy, and in order to create synergy with the U.S.'s Pacific strategy in 2019, MOFA of Korea and the Secretary of State of the U.S., or the Department of State, decided to engage in a cooperative project in the Mekong River Basin.
이를 근거로 해서
And based on such strategy, in 2019 Busan, the very first Mekong-Korea Summit took place. And there, the leaders of the 5 Mekong Basin countries in Korea adopted the Mekong River Declaration
MRC와의
and also forged an MOU with MRC, the Mekong River Commission, with the basin countries, and that was a result. And that resulted in the KMCRC. A Mekong Water Resource Joint Research Center to be installed in Korea Water Resources Cooperation will serve as a foundation. So this is by the President of Moon Jae-in that has become the founding principle of the KMCRC. And you see a Prime Minister of, and has been the co-chair of the Korea-Mekong Summit. In order to effectively predict floods and droughts in Mekong Basin, we decided to put together this center, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Korea for establishing this center.
1월달
Last year in January, at K-Water Institute, this collaborative research center was established. And last July, in order to engage in some external activities and for stable operation, we decided to incorporate this center. And last December, we've held the inaugural assembly of this new incorporation. And the Ministry of Environment has provided us with the permit to run this organization. And we've registered this incorporation. And for 8 months since its incorporation, we've went through all of the necessary processes and procedures. And our core area is research, but we want to strengthen the link between research and business. Not only that, we have our global business division at K-Water, and we wanted to strengthen the synergy with this division. And therefore, this center was relocated this March from K-Water Institute to the Global Business Division of K-Water. And ever since this relocation, we've held the regular BOD and the general meeting in July. And we also had an offline seminar to commemorate the establishment of this incorporation. Let me now move on to the major mission of KMCRC. First, we aspire to engage in sustained projects to solve the pending issues of Mekong and support the new Southern policy of Korea. The second arm of our mission is to strengthen the connection with overseas businesses. So in other words, we want to become the beachhead to identify overseas business models, and we also want to strengthen our networking and collaboration with experts and Mekong-related organizations to contribute to solving the pending issues of the Mekong River Basin. KMCRC is a R&D technology cooperation platform, as mentioned, and we forge relationship with the government as well as organizations both home and abroad. In terms of our government partners, we have our Presidential Committee on New Southern Policy, MOFA, MOE, and as our domestic institutions, we have KOICA, KDI, and we all have KIEP. A total of 8 organizations are currently a part of this collaborative network. As for our overseas partners, we have MRC, and we have MI in Thailand. And as I've mentioned, we have a co-project with the U.S. And under the Department of State, we have NASA as well as USACE as partner organizations. In the future, we will continue on to strengthen and expand our network with relevant institutions. These are the projects that are planned or that are currently implemented by the center. There are a total of 8 projects. One has been already completed in September, and there are 3 projects underway. And from the second half
계획을 하고
Until early next year, there are projects that are being planned or that are being identified. We have the ADB project, the UNDP, the ASEAN-ROK Cooperation Fund, as well as the Quaker projects.
진행하고 있는 과제 중에
And out of the 3 projects that are underway, I would like to mention 2 projects that are currently led by our center.
첫 번째 메콩 지역에 대한
The first is the program to utilize water resource data of the Mekong region. MOFA and the Department of State has agreed to engage in this joint project. So it's financed by MOFA, $500,000 from the fund and the $500,000 matching fund by the U.S. So a total of $1 million is the financing for this project. So it's a joint project between the U.S. and Korea. To give you some more information, this is led by KMCRC, and K-Water Institute is taking part as a research partner. And under the Department of State of the U.S., we have NASA as well as USACE as partners. In terms of the details, it's utilizing global satellite information to accumulate and collect water resource data on Mekong River Basin and monitor that information. So NASA and K-Water currently is sharing this information, this water resource data, and engaging in monitoring. And in the case of K-Water and USACE, a hydrological and hydraulic model was put together to apply this. And for the practitioners on KMRC, this information is being utilized to strengthen their capabilities and competencies. And the second is the project that was underway
법인 과제
ever since we were incorporated. This is the first project that was delegated by the Ministry of Environment. The US, Japan, and China and other donor countries have interest in the Mekong region market. So this is surveying the needs and demand. And not only that, it's about putting together a strategy to manage water resources in the Mekong River Basin.
중장기 전략 등을
We also want to put together a mid to long-term strategy for KMCRC. We do have one in place, but we thought that we can complement that and make it more sustainable with the input of experts in the field. So it's about updating our roadmap and providing a detailed operation schedule. This project is being led by KMCRC, as mentioned, and the K-Water Policy Institute is also taking part.
비전과 중장기
Next is on the vision and the mid to long-term strategy for KMCRC. This is the vision of KMCRC. As mentioned, is to become a world resource dedicated R&D technology cooperation platform that's global leading, and we have a total of 4 pillars. We want to focus on supporting the New Southern Policy based on public-private partnership. We also want to cater to the demands of the local region to engage in R&D projects. And the third is to utilize our special subcommittees to strengthen expertise. And the fourth is to utilize the local Mekong network to provide information on water resource. And on the key areas, let me go into detail in the latter part of my presentation. So the first part is on strengthening the expertise amongst industry, academia, and research. In other words, we want to strengthen our expertise on the Mekong River Basin. So we do have R&D subcommittees, cooperation subcommittees, as well as the water industry subcommittee. So we do have a total of 3 committees in place,
10명씩
and we have 10 members each. A total of 30 experts are involved and are a part of the expert council. In the R&D subcommittee, it focuses its efforts with the partners in the water resource area to acquire water resource information and to identify joint projects in the Mekong region and to provide technological advice to the localities in Mekong. Second, in order to overcome the pending issues, it's not just about engineering. It's also about the humanities, it's also about the rule of law and a convergence of multidisciplinary areas. We will engage in ways to strengthen cooperation with many stakeholders and partners. So we are going to be the bridge for local projects and strengthen network amongst international organizations. And the third subcommittee is centered on domestic companies who make inroads into the water market. And it's about sharing information on the water business in Mekong and understanding the needs and demands to commercialize many ideas. Regularly, we share information and we also utilize this to share information and needs. So we're actively facilitating the subcommittees to become the think tank dedicated to the Mekong River Basin. In the future, what we want to do is also encompass overseas organizations that focus on the Mekong region and put together subcommittees on particular topics. In order to support overseas businesses, it's important to have credible basic data. And based on such basic data, we need to analyze based on the hydrographical and hydrological information. And when we want to identify new businesses, we do not necessarily have to go to the Mekong River Basin. We can utilize this data information to engage in pre-feasibility studies and use this as a tool to establish master plans. Not only that, this will offer information on water resources in the Mekong region, and this analysis system will help us identify new business areas. The local staff in Mekong and companies already that run a business also have a lot of information, so we can utilize that to get accurate measurement data, and we also need a shared system to have that as a common asset for all those interested. You can see we are using satellite information to understand the soil moisture level, the sediment level in the region. So this is used for water resource management. But in addition to that, we utilize our local network to further accumulate and acquire more hydrological information and to have that fed into our analysis system. So in other words, this is to be the provider of water resource data of Mekong region. So we have this platform in place. And in 2022, we're going to launch the Korean-Mekong Water Forum. We have specialized subcommittees where experts are brought together to look into some collaborative agenda items, and collaboration projects will be proposed in the first half of next year and during the International World Forum of Korea and Mekong. This will not just be a conference as a one-off event. It's going to be utilized to identify projects and also implement these projects going forward. So we want to make it into a substantial forum. KMCRC, as mentioned, was incorporated in was established in 2020, was incorporated in 2021, and we do have a short history, but we wanted to take this opportunity to promote the KMCRC, and we will continue to do that and strengthen our foundation. And starting from next year, we're going to surface joint cooperation projects and put together a technological platform for cooperation, and also put together the right policies to run this research work. In the long term, we want to open local offices and launch a technology shared system. And by raising the prominence of the KMCRC, we want to become an international organization as a long-term strategy. And once that's done, the following effects will be possible. It's been already mentioned in my presentation, so I'll not go into the specifics. And last but not least, this is the future vision that we have. In terms of water management, technology, networking with home and abroad, government policies, and international organizations, I think that bringing this all together, we can become a true R&D platform in earnest. We would like to ask for your affection and interest in KMCRC going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Park Jin-young. As you just said, there are various projects being implemented in the Mekong River region. He talked about the vision of the projects as well as the specific platforms. Now I'd like to invite the next speaker, who is Professor Lee Jun of Chungbu University, who is also serving as the Vice President of the Korea Water Resources Association. He'll be talking about water issues in the Mekong and role of international development. He is also Professor of Civil Engineering at Chungbu University and the Director of the Center for Drought Research, which is an industry-academia joint collaboration. Thank you very much. I'd like to first thank the organizers, K-Water and Korea-Mekong CRC, Mr. Park Jin-young, for inviting me The topic that I'll talk about is the water issues in the Mekong and role of international development. Most of you here are experts of international development. You're leaders and managers of international development, but I'm not. I'm an engineer. I'm a scientist of water resources, and I'm in the academia. And every time I participated in such projects, I realized that there's some sort of changes in paradigm taking place. And I also wanted to talk about the perspective of an engineer. These are the things that I will cover today. And as you well know, I'll first talk about international development. There are many aspects of international development, but water and sanitation is one, and I'd like to talk about the status of that. First, what is international development? It's about reducing the wealth gap between developed and developing countries, developed and developed countries, and the gap existing within developing countries. And thereby, they want to alleviate poverty. However, development is somehow negative in nuance. So these days, rather than assistance or aid which was used in the past, the development cooperation is replacing this term. Recently, however, as you can see in the KMCRC's case, cooperation based on comprehensive partnership with developing countries is being more emphasized, and the international development cooperation has replaced the previous terminology. Here, the depends approach is provided as a way to success of international development projects. There are 7 factors in depends. First is development of infrastructure, economic growth. Upon that, poverty alleviation, social equity, natural resources, and other natural resources and water resources being one of them, being protected. Democracy and social justice are the 7 pillars of depends. But water and sanitation includes all 7 of these factors, which symbolizes its importance. According to Dr. Priti of Cambridge University, who is a very experienced scholar in South African development, he said that there is no cheaper, faster, better way to alleviate poverty in slums than by providing clean water and proper sanitation. He says that many development scholars say that water was able to reduce infant mortality and double the incomes of the poor. So India has been able to achieve this in the last 30 years, but water resources management was able to do that in 5 years. So I think we need to look at the global water security next. This is the research project that I did with the UN last year. It's about a 1.5-year project. We looked at 5 core sectors in terms of water security, and we assessed that. Core area number 1 is how much clean water is being distributed to everyone in the country. Core area 2 is economic efficiency. Even if it's the same amount of water, what's the amount of value added created. Core area 3 is resilience to water-related disasters such as flood and droughts. Core area 4 is environmental sustainability. Core area 5 is the government's competence vis-a-vis water resource management. We used international databases, and more than 100 indicators were used in this assessment. Let's look at each area. Core area 1, as you can see, the red dotted line indicates the Mekong region, and South East Asian countries. It shows that European countries and North America is leading in this area. Southern countries are not doing so well. What about water shortage? Africa, Asian countries are mostly red, and this shows resilience to water-related disaster, how well people are prepared to withstand a flood. You see that Southern American countries and some Mekong region countries are not doing very well. This shows a little bit a little bit different result. In fact, African countries are doing well, and Central America and European countries are lagging behind. That means they're not really managing it in terms of the environment. Finally, countries who are developed, such as North America and Europe, are leading in terms of water security. Here, Korea is the standard, and those who are faring better than Korea are indicated in blue or light blue, and the ones who aren't doing as well as Korea are indicated in pink, red, and orange. This shows us which countries we should provide development cooperation and which areas. We have what we call the Brent line that development scientists use. It distinguishes global north and global south. I really don't like this term. However, if you divide that based on $10,000, global south countries all have a GDP of less than 10,000, and the global north all exceed 10,000. So you have to help them. But even that is changing. How is it changing? On the left-hand side, we see that in the 1800s, the continents who lived on less than $2 a day were indicated here. In 1975, and now there was 100 years later, most South American, North American, European countries were able to escape that, but still most Asian countries still lived below $2 a day. After 40 years, in 2015, even many Asian countries have gone beyond that. It's only the blue indicated African countries that still suffer from serious poverty. That means that Korea's overseas development cooperation should not be limited to certain countries. It has to be determined after looking at the international paradigm. Then I'll talk about development management and restoration. Development is the main issue here. Do we need to continue what we have been doing? We need to rethink our paradigm. The water resources of Korea. Here, we really don't have any development plans for water resources anymore. We used to plan for building dams or building waterworks or sewage systems, but it's no longer necessary in Korea. In Korea, we used to have a Water Resource Development Bureau, but we don't have that anymore. Development has disappeared. It all boiled down to management now. That shows a shift of paradigm in Koreans' policy, shifting from development to management, and you are at the center of this shift. If you analyze the Korea's economic development and water resources development, the orange line is the total usage of water, the volume of water used. You see that it peaked in mid-1990s and then started to go down. So the usage of water decreased in volume. The blue line is Korea's GDP. On the far right-hand side, it reaches 30,000. When does the water usage decrease? It decreases when GDP reached 10,000 and was between 15,000. This means that water in the agricultural sector as well as industrial sector stopped increasing. We have a Deputy Director General from MOFAP, but what about international development cooperation through ODA in the water sector? We see that Korea's ODA in the water area is only 1/10 of that of the U.S. For water sanitation, Korea's ODA is almost 1/20th of that of Japan. Nevertheless, we have to rethink our ODA strategy and have to work harder to become an ODA leader. This is the Cheonggyecheon area before and after. The Cheonggyecheon, which was a stream, was covered because of the urban development. But then it was restored. Sometimes you think that you can restore it to its natural state, but really it's very hard. You can replace the benefits of the water, which are benefits for people, and then you can do rehabilitation, which provides ecosystem benefit. But the Cheonggyecheon project failed to achieve both. It eventually went to replacement. We have people from KDI today. The Mekong region, basin-wide sustainable hydropower development was a KSP program that went on for a year. That was about building hydropower and dams in the Mekong River. So consulting was provided. What I suggested was that you don't necessarily have to build dams. All you need to do is relocate the volume, and it will have the same effect as building a dam. So reservoir storage reallocation could replace construction of dams. This means that development is not necessarily the answer all the time. Google has joined hands with MIC and Facebook. So they are looking at software-related areas for cooperation with MRC. This is not just about water. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, you see a 1997 image of Nanjido. This was an ugly place, but it went through urban regeneration and became the Sangam DMC in the year 2000. The cumulative number of visitors have reached over 200 million. The skyscraper you can see in the background is in the background of Seoul Central City. This is the last issue. What is our future challenge for international development cooperation in the Mekong region? Disaster is the first issue that comes to mind. But there's a lack of understanding regarding climate change. If you look at this, there are countries where its people can live on a small amount of water, and countries that require a lot of water. That means that people are very adapting. You need to look at the average shortfall. And that keeps in line with understanding of climate change. This is the climate change in Lower Mekong Basin. And you can see that in 2018, there was a great flood. In 2020, there was a great drought. So when you're building infrastructure in Mekong River, should you look at 2018 or 2020? Is this an indication of climate change? So you need to understand climate change before you engage in projects. Then the last thing that I want to mention is environmental justice, which is also necessary for Mekong. Among OECD countries, Korea is also subject to environmental impact analysis, and the lowest rated area for Korea's environmental justice. This is about how distributive justice is realized in the environment and how much redress and correction it takes when somebody does wrong. And then how can we arrive at a rational outcome, which is a matter of process. So water justice goes beyond environmental justice. We need to look at ways to realize water justice in the Mekong region. But there's one thing that we need to be careful about. What is that? Justice. The word justice might seem to be a solution to everything, environmental justice and water justice. However, if you overemphasize the theoretical part, then it becomes a part of populism. It is used by populist politicians. Therefore, that we need to make sure that the definition of water justice and environmental justice suits that region. I don't know if this is possible, but if somebody asked me what I wanted to do in the Mekong region, it would be something like this. There's upstream and downstream conflicts between the basins, countries, and individuals. So disputes over water is very serious in Mekong. Therefore, a system dynamic approach for a conflict resolution model could be built to address many different forms of water disputes. If we can make long-term investments in that, perhaps somebody can generate power in Laos and export it to Cambodia, and then the overall system can be worked out. I didn't complete this diagram because there are many more. Whether it's tidy or untidy, there are many projects that we support in Mekong. Do we really need so many ministries involved, so many agencies involved? The first thing that I want to ask is coordination really being made between these participants? And is synergy really being created? As an engineer and as a scholar, this is something that I thought about. I think that we believe our model can be applied to everywhere unilaterally. The culture, the food, the climate of the countries are not really taken into full consideration. We just think that we can transplant our model and succeed in that locality. This is something that we need to work on and improve. Furthermore, just construction and development, that's not a panacea for everything, and we need to change our paradigm if we want to be more future-oriented. This is Dr. Moyo, a hardworking international development scientist. She comes from Zambia. She says aid is dead. In the past 50 years, more than $1 trillion was invested in Africa. But has the lives of Africans improved as a result of the assistance? Has justice been improved? He says no. In fact, it has become worse, much worse. She says that aid is dead as a result. And that is because of the vicious circle of aid dependency, corruption, market distortion, and further poverty. But there's one thing that I would like to add. Aid is dead, but development cooperation still remains alive and well. This is the conclusion. Bill Lord said something in the Water Resources Bulletin. Bad water management often occurs when facts are confused with values, means are confused with ends, and secondly, when technical judgments are made by politicians or citizens. Should not be so. Technical judgments should be made by experts. Thirdly, value judgments are sometimes made by scientists and professionals, and that gives rise to bad water management. In the end, you should be seen by a doctor, diagnosed, but the drug has to be dispensed by the pharmacist.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee Joo-won, for your insightful presentation. We were able to understand that water security is important and also how it impacts policy as well as the overall domain of world resource management. Thank you very much. Let us now move on to the third presentation. I would like to invite Dr. Anulaka Kitikohan of MRC, and the title of his presentation is Recent and Future Water Issues in the Mekong River Basin. Due to COVID-19, Mr. Kitikun could not take part, but he delivered his video.
Recent and future water issues in the Mekong River Basin. My name is Anulaka Kitikun. I'm the Chief Strategy and Partnership Officer of the Mekong River Commission Secretariat. Happy to join you in this special Mekong Korea session. So my talk would be on the current and future issues of the Mekong. Has the Mekong seen its last days? And then I would talk about what some of the key actions that we should be doing to save and to further develop the Mekong sustainably. First, let's look at the key indicators from water flow conditions, water quality, sediment conditions, status of environmental assets, living conditions, employment in the water-related sectors, and climate change and extremes and trends. So you can see that most of the conditions are not so positive, with the outlook to 2030 not very good, except in the economic areas probably. But the environment areas, it's looking not so good. Let's look at specifically in each of these indicators. For water flow conditions, the natural Mekong is no more. We are now entering rapid development with more and more infrastructure, especially water infrastructure. So this has resulted in a changing flow regime, sometimes rapid water fluctuations, and continuing risk to livelihoods, although some areas are more vulnerable than others. And this trends will continue up until 2030 if nothing is being done about it. In terms of water quality, the Mekong water is now pretty good, but the major cities are increasingly being polluted. There are more trends in terms of industrial and agricultural pollutant runoffs, and there will be more and more water quality emergencies in the future as more ships, more dry years, resulting in water quality problems. In terms of sediment, we have a historic reduction of sediment supply from the source of the water to the sea, mainly a result of damming and sand mining. By 2040, for example, we have estimated that it could be 90-95% of sediment would disappear. Bank erosion, this is one consequence of reduction of sediment. And to do embankment would cost $6 billion to address from now until 2040. In environmental assets, there will be further loss of wetlands and floodplains, especially in the delta, and more biodiversity hotspots. Because of development and overfishing, native fish will further decline. In our estimate, 25 to 40% in most zones will be reduced by 2030-40. And the only news of increase is non-native fish, such as tilapia. In terms of living conditions, by 2040, the basin population will be 100 million people. So lots of population, lots of food needs. In terms of employment, there will be a shift from agriculture and dependent industries to manufacturing service sectors as the countries become more developed. Poverty reduction will further go down, so this is good news. And rural-urban migration will increase, so 50 to 70% will live in cities. But the problem with development is that there will be increased inequalities, pockets of poverty left in society. Although the rich get richer, the poorer might get poorer. Some good news with electricity and basic drinking water, we will reach full access. And our study suggests that food will be generally secure, although there are some risks due to dry years, such as crops and fish. So those are a pretty mixed picture of the Mekong by 2030, some quite negative, some positive. But how to bring the negative trends down and how to increase the positive trends even further. So we have a new strategy. As some of you may know, the new Basin Development Strategy approved by the 4 countries' governments. It looks at 5 different priorities in the environment, in the social, economic, resilience, and strengthening cooperation. And we hope that if we implement this strategy, if all actors in the basin and their development partners support this strategy, we will see the Mekong in 2030 of a brand new day. So for example, in the water flow conditions, we are hoping that the impacts of flow changes will be better managed. Flow changes will continue, but the impacts will be better managed. Some sediment losses will be irreversible, but the remaining sediment balance will be better managed. Some of the floodplains will be lost, but remaining floodplains can still be protected, wetlands, etc. Native fish decline would continue, but there could be better investment in selected areas so that we do not lose altogether. Living conditions of the people would generally improve because of economic growth and development in all the 4 countries. But we need to have the vulnerable people better protected. Employment, there will be a shift in employment from agricultural to service and industry, and the vulnerable people will be supported through alternative livelihood programs. The economic value of key sectors of the water-related development, agriculture, hydropower, and navigation would all go up, except fish. It could go up or down. Continued temperature rises. Mekong countries cannot do too much about that, probably except China, in terms of contributing to the reduction of greenhouse gas. In terms of severe floods and droughts, with better water infrastructure, both green and gray investments, we think the water security situation will be much improved. So in order for the conditions that we project to happen, we require 4 shifts or 4 transformations. First, we need to transform from reactive planning to proactive planning. Second, we need to transform from uncoordinated to coordinated management of water infrastructures. Third, we need to shift from fragmented and outdated river monitoring, modeling, and information systems to integrated and modern system. Finally, we need to shift from cooperation based primarily on lower Mekong countries to cooperation for the entire Mekong countries or Mekong Lansang countries. I will talk about some of this. Reactive planning. Reactive planning is suboptimal and unsustainable. Reactive planning means you only react to whatever the countries or certain actors propose. You have to move to proactive planning, meaning you have to identify joint opportunities, joint projects, national projects of basin-wide significance from a basin-wide point of view to increase economic benefits, to reduce trade-offs, to address vulnerabilities. And in order for you to do that, you need to conduct 4 sets of new strategic studies and options. First, we need to look at much more storage options in the basin, both natural and constructed storage. Second, you need to set some limits to environmental change, otherwise everything will disappear. Third, you need to manage sediment, not just monitor. And finally, you can come up with new thresholds for actions when the flow regime is violated. So the spirit that you need to do is you need to bring the 6 countries together and their development partners to reach a new development consensus, which is the spirit of the 60s. Second, from uncoordinated to coordinated management of water infrastructure. This is a very challenging area because a lot of the water infrastructure in the Mekong, they're single purpose, either energy or irrigation. So first of all, we think the minimum that you can do is share data information among operators so that they can begin to know what each is doing. Second, timely notify key stakeholders of unusual releases and restrictions. So this involves making communication plan and adaptation plan for various key stakeholders. And third, if you get those two correct, then you can begin talking about coordination of operation and management, not just energy or irrigation production, but also for flood, for drought, for other environmental factors. Third, you need to move from fragmented and outdated river monitoring to a modern integrated system. Currently in the Mekong, there are regional monitoring networks, there are national monitoring networks, there are different development partner supported networks and stations. So these are very costly, not sustainable, not fit for purpose. So what we are doing now is to move towards a core river monitoring network for the mainstream that is plugged into the broader basin networks of national, upper Mekong, and other actors. Next, we are currently developing or upgrading our decision support framework with new models, new databases, which will be not only for planning purpose, but operational purpose, as well as medium to long-term forecasts for flood and drought. And we much needed to do more on public interface and dashboards so that the public can easily consume these information in a timely manner using modern technologies such as apps. And finally, we need to build on the MRC dialogue partner arrangement with China and Myanmar in terms of data sharing agreement, annual meeting, technical exchanges, joint studies, and building on recent linkages such as the MOU with the LMC Water Center, with the LMC Joint Working Group, and expand some of the expert groups to include experts from all the 6 countries to do together joint study, proactive regional planning, joint state of basin report. And we can also enhance our stakeholder engagement, bring in different actors under the multi-stakeholder platform. Finally, the roles and responsibility of the MRC, LMC, and others needs to be clarified and cemented so that everybody knows exactly what they're doing, preventing minimize duplications, enhance synergies, and deliver better outcomes to the countries. So cooperation actions, in summary, first and foremost among the 6 riparian countries, and through coordination of different Mekong-related cooperation framework, including Mekong-Korea. We have also been working very close with our Korean counterparts, such as the Korean Development Institute, Korea Water, Korea Ports and Harbor, Korean Ministry of Science and Technology, supporting the UN and MRC. So lots of opportunities to build on, and then all of that should be underpinned by supports from other partners and stakeholders. So I thank you very much and hope to see you in the future.
네, 여러분 지금까지
Thank you very much. That was a presentation by Dr. Anulak Kittikun, Chief Strategy and Partnership Officer at MRC. Thank you very much. As a development cooperation expert, he has worked a long time in this area, and he talked about the water issues in the Mekong River Basin. We heard 3 presentations, one by Dr. Park Jin-hyuk, Professor Lee Joo-hun, and finally Dr. Anulak Kittikun. This concludes the panel presentation. There will be a round-table session in the second part of the symposium. We will have a 5-minute break while we rearrange the stage.
네, 여러분 고맙습니다.
Thank you very much. In the coronavirus pandemic and climate change times, we are holding a very important and timely symposium commemorating the 10th anniversary of Mekong-Korea Cooperation. Now we will start the panel discussion. We will introduce the panelists and invite them on stage.
무대에 모시겠습니다.
First of all, from UNESCO IHP, Mr. Chung Kwan-soo, the co-chair of UNESCO HP National Committee. Thank you very much. From the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Chung Kyung-hwa, the second director of the Southeast Asian Division.
아시아 유럽 본부
KOICA Asia Europe headquarters, Ms. Im Jong-hee.
감사드립니다. 이어서 부산
And from Busan Foreign Studies University, Professor Lee Yo-han. Please welcome him to the stage.
계속해서
And from Kiev,
함께
head researcher, Mr. Professor Kwak Song-il.
자리입니다. 그리고 앞서 일부의 발제자로 많은 의견을 공유해 주신
Furthermore, we have our speakers, Mr. Park Jin-hyuk from KMCRC,
고맙습니다. 끝으로 한국수자원학
and
부장님께서도 다시 한번
Mr. Lee Ju-hun, the Vice President of the Korea Water Resource Association.
네, 부장님 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much,
네, 오늘
Vice President Lee Ju-hun.
정관수 교수님을
Professor Chung Kwan-soo will be moderating today's panel discussion. He is currently a professor of civil engineering at Chungnam University, and he is the board of director of the Korea Water Resource Association and part of UNESCO panel as well. I'd like to ask him, the professor to moderate the session. Thank you very much for the very impassioned presentations. Due to your passionate presentations, we have been slightly delayed in our schedule. So as a result, I'd like to ask the panelists to be brief in their comments and questions. Try to limit your intervention to 5 minutes. First, I'd like to invite Chung Kyung-hwa, the second director of the Southeast Asian Division of MOFA. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Chung Kyung-hwa. I'd like to say it's a great pleasure to be here at this symposium commemorating the 10th anniversary of Mekong-ROK cooperation. Our division is in charge of Korea-Mekong Cooperation, and MOFA is very committed and interested in the Korea-Mekong Cooperation. It is not only related to our work, but also related to development cooperation and Korea's trade, economy, foreign affairs, and society, as well as human exchange. So I believe that the Mekong region is a very important diplomatic partner of Korea. In this respect, the Korea-Mekong Foreign Ministers meeting took place for the first time in 2011, and the Korea-Mekong Cooperation was launched at that meeting. This was elevated to the summit meeting, and then again elevated to the strategic partnership last year. This shows that the Mekong-Korea cooperation is deepening and widening in scope. Furthermore, the Korea-Mekong cooperation is not only advancing in these institutional frameworks, but also in terms of funding. The Korea-Mekong Cooperation Fund was launched in 2013. It started small, but it continued to expand. The fund is used to provide the necessary development projects to the Mekong countries. That is the basic guideline for our support. It's not only the Korea-Mekong Cooperation, we also have Korea-Mekong Business Forum and Ministerial Meeting. This year, we have designated as the year of Korea-Mekong Exchange and Cooperation Year. Next year, we want to promote awareness among peoples on both sides on the importance of Korea-Mekong cooperation. So despite the COVID crisis, we are planning to hold many events, including on and offline events, concerts, and also appointing ambassadors for this cause. Regarding the Korea-Mekong cooperation, we believe it is very important and impressive that the Mekong countries are latecomers with development gaps, but these countries have great growth potentials. For Vietnam, Vietnam is our fourth largest trading partner after China, US, and Japan, and there's a wide scope of human exchange taking place between Korea and Vietnam. Last year, despite the pandemic, trade volume with Mekong countries reached very high levels. It did not decrease at all compared to the past. In the first half of this year, it even recovered beyond the pre-pandemic level. This shows that cooperation with Mekong countries need to be continuously strengthened. That is the end of my comments.
Thank you very much, Director Jung, for your comments. Director Jung gave us some background information on the partnership between Korea and Mekong. And as we commemorate the 10th anniversary of the cooperation, we've mentioned about the many events that are being held. And you've also mentioned that despite the COVID situation, we've been able to have the cooperation up and running. Let us now move on to Vice President Im Jung-hee for Asia and Europe of KOICA. Hello, everyone. I'm Im Jung-hee, in charge of Asia and Europe in KOICA. Thank you very much for giving me the invitation to take part in this meaningful Global Korea Convention 2021. And the three presentations were very interesting. As a person involved in water resource ODA and planning and assessment, which is the role that KOICA plays, it was quite interesting. KOICA wants to reduce the development gap and wants to focus on, and is currently focusing on the projects in Cambodia, which is one of the underdeveloped countries in the Mekong region. In the past, it was just focused on agricultural use. But ever since the mid-long-term strategy of KOICA, we're looking into disaster management as well as IWRM. So diversified businesses and programs are in place. So in terms of the direction that was mentioned by the speakers, you can see that KOICA is also in the same vein. And the KMCRC, we've heard from the director on the roles and the strategies. Thank you very much for that presentation. It's the only R&D technology platform in Korea on Mekong, and I can see that you have a long-term plan to become an international organization. KOICA is also interested in the businesses and programs in water resource in Mekong region, and we also are interested in assessment and evaluation. I hope that we can engage in partnership with KMCRC in these endeavors. And the second presenter was Professor Lee Ju-hwan, and we've talked about some key tasks in international cooperation. And also some of the misunderstandings on development cooperation. So there were a lot of implications in his presentation. also mentioned the importance of water resource sanitation and that ODA has a critical impact on this. KOICA will make sure to connect water resource and welfare, and actually we're doing that as I speak. We have such programs. And the third speaker was from MRC, who talked about recent and future water issues in the Mekong River Basin. KOICA it also has a mid to long-term plan where we do have a basin management plan of 2030 and 2040, and we're going to make sure that it's in line with MRC's strategy. So based on the presentation, I was able to see that there's a lot of area that we can forge partnership. For the past 10 years, KOICA has seen increase in ODA projects in water. For 19 years, 1.2 trillion or about $880 billion was financed to Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand, the 5 countries, critical elements of the New Southern Policy. And 65 million or 75% was in water-related programs. This, compared to the total aid of KOICA, you can see is an annual 7% of KOICA's overall projects. And if we look at some details, we have drinking water, sanitation, 25.8%, agriculture, 26.2%, water resource management, 23.1%, disaster management, 16.2%. Not only that, ever since the establishment in 1991, KOICA's water ODA amounts to 138 programs. And 23% or 31 programs are focused on the Mekong region and their water resource development. And we have 3 programs currently underway in the Mekong Basin. Cambodia, which is a water security vulnerable nation, we do have 2 projects there. And in Laos, well, in terms of water security, it's in a better condition, better circumstance than other countries, but it's an underdeveloped nation. It's the least developed nation, and water is a critical element for their economic development. So we're currently engaging in an IWRM program. And in terms of the direction of KOICA in water resource management, in 2019, there was the summit, and President Moon has mentioned about the miracle of the Mekong, just like the miracle of the Han. And the Mekong Basin is a key area of the New Southern Policy, as mentioned, so we want to make sure that there are no disputes. There is desirable allocation and fair allocation of water resources, and we hope that we can contribute to the livelihoods and the welfare and the health of the residents. In the case of Japan and China, there do have infrastructure-related projects focused on economic benefits, but we're quite different. KOICA is about reducing the development gap. We want to focus on the quality of life of the Mekong residents, and especially when it comes to climate crisis and pandemic crises like the COVID, we do need an integrated approach. In 2016, KOICA, our focus was on these elements, so that was our first strategy. And what we want to do is not only focus on the quantity, but also the quality of our projects. And I think we're actually doing that right now. KOICA lacks the expertise when it comes to water resource management. However, we are an exemplar aid organization in the international stage, so we have our own expertise and know-how in development aid. Along with experts of water resource, we want to identify some key programs in the Mekong River Basin, and we want to increase the pie in water resource programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Im. She talked about the Mekong countries, which are at the center of the New Southern Policy, and the projects that are being invested in these countries. She also talked about her hopes, especially the parts that were mentioned by the 3 panel presenters were also, again, emphasized in its importance. Now I'd like to invite Professor Lee Yo-han from Busan University of Foreign Studies to make his intervention. Yes, thank you very much. We are holding the 10th Anniversary Symposium of Mekong Mekong-ROK cooperation. It started with 4 ministers meeting, and this year marks the 10th year since that meeting took place. I was actually working at the Laos University at the time, and I was researching Mekong at the time. So I personally am marking 10 years of research on the Mekong region. At that time, there were very, very few people studying the Mekong region, so I was quite lonely in my effort. Looking back at the 10 years, I'm quite surprised that the Mekong region has become important enough to be discussed at the summit level. And I realize that much has happened and much has advanced. But at the same time, if you look at the cooperation with Mekong region on the part of the US, China, or Japan, we still have much to do, and we still lack significantly in our capacity. For example, it's not just about a government issue. Even as scholars, we see hundreds of Mekong-related research papers being published. That means Mekong is a very hot region in terms of research. But as I mentioned earlier, research in Korea has a very weak basis. So if we want to further develop our cooperation with Mekong and establish a significant relationship, we need to enhance the understanding of Mekong-Korea cooperation in a wider scope of areas. So when the director of the KMCRC talked about joint research project, I thought it was a good idea. KMCRC is in charge of conducting researches, including joint researches. So I hope that you continue to develop the center as a hub of Mekong studies. I, on my part, will try my very best to support you and provide any help that I can. Another thing that I would like to add is that the Korea-Mekong cooperation is an urgent issue. As I studied Mekong, I realized that the ecosystem in Mekong is deteriorating rapidly. Professor Lee mentioned this, but once an ecosystem is destroyed, it's very difficult to restore that. And I believe that this is now a window of opportunity. Many people are interested in gaining economic benefit through Mekong-Korea cooperation, through its cooperation with Mekong. That means that Korea should take a little different aspect. They should not only look at economic gains, but also look at cooperating and supporting other areas such as the environment or the ecosystem.
Thank you. It's quite unfortunate that we don't have a lot of time. Unfortunately, we cannot go into the details. Professor Lee talked about the years of Korea-Mekong cooperation, and he also mentioned the insufficient R&D platform in the cooperation, and that the center can play that pivotal role. Thank you for your comments. Let us now move on to Kwak Song-il, Research Fellow at KIEP. Thank you. As introduced, I'm Kwak Song-il from KIEP, or Korea Institute for International Economic Policy. Thank you for the invitation to this meaningful symposium commemorating the 10th anniversary of Mekong-ROK cooperation. Because I'm the last in line, I think I only have to be redundant because all of the insightful words have been mentioned, and I know that we don't have a lot of time, so let me just focus on key 2 points. Some of the thoughts that cross my mind as I see the cooperation at work. Right now, COVID-19 and the rivalry between the US and China and climate change are challenges that have a direct impact on the Mekong River Basin. In the past, some of the presumptions that seemed correct may not be the case right now. In other words, we're faced with a major change. And the reason why I say that is because we're seeing a fastly changing world with the health crisis, in the past, some of the things that were just taken for granted or what had a certain pace to it is now accelerating, such as digitalization. And the changes, the order of change and the pace of change is now completely different. And I know that the Mekong region may be baffled with all of these changes. So right now, I think it's a point in time where we should review on what we took for granted and to see what's in store for us in the future. As we go through the health crisis due to COVID and in response to the climate crisis, I think that's what we need to do right now to review the current status. And we're talking about development cooperation right now, and it's the same case here at Kiev. There are three aspects that were emphasized in the Declaration of Korea-Mekong. The first was people-to-people exchange. The second was peace for sustainable development. And third was on sharing experience for prosperity. In the case of the first and second pillars, the peace for sustainable development and people-to-people exchanges has been actively pursued by partner countries and organizations. So then, what should we do? How can we fully unleash our potential? I think that is sharing experience for prosperity. So, in order to focus on that third pillar, I thought about what we can do. There are stakeholders, including Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, and Laos. So it's important to cooperate with them. But what's even more important than that is to have partner countries or the developed countries and to discuss with them how we can collaborate better and how we can share our experience with them. Up till now, the mode of operation was just that we can just deliver our experience to the developing nations. But I think that's not the case. It's also about the developed nations also gaining insight from our experience to develop even better programs for the developing countries. So what I want to say is that we need to work in partnership with the developed, the advanced nations, and to have a framework in place to make sure that our past experience can contribute in better projects. So I hope that the KMCRC will pay more attention to this, and I know that you have a lot of cooperation with the U.S., including that with USACE, and I think that these are meaningful projects to engage in. And thank you.
감사합니다. 시간이 지금 40.
Thank you very much. It's 47 past 5 right now. And I think it's time that we rethink a lot of things that we have been taking for granted. You talked about cooperation, sustainability, and the human aspect. You also said that we need to look at sharing our experience with developed countries, not only developing countries. Maybe I summarized it too briefly, but we have two panel presenters on stage with us. I will give 1 minute to each of them. I've already made my presentation, so I'll just touch upon two things. One, I'd like to say to the two people, Mr. Chung Kyung-yoon and Ms. Im Jung-hee. Programs are important, but the most important thing are people. The Global Business Division at K-Water is doing a lot of hard work, and the people at KMCRC or MSC have to be trained as international experts, and continuous support has to be provided toward this end. Ms. Im talked about how KOICA has been very active in ODA support. So I think a good way is to probably hire a lot of water resources experts. I'd also like to say this to the director from MOFA, because the experts can cover a lot of areas where the professionals miss. This is the end of my comment.
Yes, thank you very much for that succinct comment. And we would like to just entertain one question or comment from the floor. If you raise your hand, we will pass you the mic.
다시 한번 콜하겠습니다. 플로어에
Yes, once again, any comments or questions from the floor?
혹시 저 우리 이사장님, 정 이사장님.
Yes, maybe CEO Chung Kyung-yoon, do you have anything you would like to add?
아, 예, 예. 김 박사님.
Yes, Dr. Kim.
예, 짧게 말씀드리겠습니다. 저도 뭐
Just briefly.
에 대해서 한 2년 정도
For 2 years with ADB and World Bank, I did conduct a program in the Mekong region, and my thoughts back then are the following. It's that there's a lot of things that we can contribute.
여러 가지 과제를 추진함에 있어서
When we do pursue programs,
투자들 간의 협력과
it's important to have a sound relationship between the engineers and the personnel of Korea and those in the local region. With ADB and World Bank, what happened was the experts of Korea and the experts of the partner countries came together to run the programs. But in the case of Korean-led projects, because most of their resourcing comes from Korea, it's true that it's a bit difficult to take full advantage of the local experts and personnel, so I would like to mention that point. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kim. And last but not least, I would like to ask Director Park Jin-hyuk of KMCRC any last comments as you've heard all of the comments. As we are preparing for the symposium, I want to say that KMCRC was put together to contribute to implementing the national policy. So we do have a heavy sense of responsibility. And MOFA and other organizations do have a lot of interest and a certain connection with the Mekong region. So I was able to once again confirm that. Panelists mentioned their expectations that they have for the center and that they want us to perform the role of a hub. We will do our best to satisfy these expectations. We'll put in good thought, put in a lot of efforts to make that happen. We'd like to ask for your further support and interest in the future in the center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the panelists for their wonderful discussion despite the short time given to us. With this, we will end the panel discussion for the Mekong-ROK Cooperation Symposium. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to ask you to join me in thanking Professor Chung Kwang-soo, who moderated the panel discussion, and the many other discussants and presenters. The development and cooperation in Mekong region requires many experts, and it was a great opportunity to listen to the voices of experts at this symposium. With this, we will end the 10th anniversary symposium of Mekong-ROK cooperation as part of the Global Korea Convention. I'd like to thank all of you for remaining until the very end, and I'd like to ask you for your continued support and interest as well as advice. I wish you the best of success and health. Thank you very much.